Hey guys, Linbo here from DeltiusGaming.com. If you clicked on this video and you're wondering why the heck you're seeing me and not Deltia, you might want to take just a quick second, pause this video, go watch this video that we're linking in the cards right now. It'll also be linked in the description down below. It'll explain a little bit better what's going on, and then come back after that and check out the rest of this video. But for now, we're gonna dive into it. When I joined the Deltius Gaming team, I quickly knew that Elder Scrolls Online would have to become a staple of my weekly gaming. It's so important to the community here, so I instantly jumped back in and threw myself into the deep end to try and get used to this game again. I actually played it about 8 or 9 years ago for just a little while, so I had a little bit of experience with it, but I was excited to dive back in. Now I know that many of you guys usually come here for deep dives and builds from very experienced players, and I hope for that to be me very soon, but I wanted to get a video out there for all of you who may be like me, new or returning to ESO after a while, to get you guys some information on what you can be doing in the game. Now I've been playing almost non-stop for the past week or so, and so I stumbled upon a few tips that may be useful to new and returning players like yourselves. I am by no means an expert, so if you're watching this and you have your own tips for new and returning players, or you want to expand on some of my tips here, make sure you leave them in the comments down below. First up, this one's pretty short and may be useless to some of you, but if you are a returning player, meaning that you've played in the past, I highly recommend that you jump back in on the account that you used to play on. There's a few reasons for that. I hopped back on the second account that I'd played on my Xbox Series X probably like 2021 or so a few years old, and found a low-level character with some items in their inventory that would be useful to me later. But more importantly than that, the game actually knows that you're a returning player and will throw some extra things your way because of that. There's a whole separate daily login bonus for players who are returning that will go for a few days after you've been playing, as well as a very easy, I guess you'd call it quest line called the Hero's Return that you'll knock out just by playing the game and diving back into it. This will fall under the Golden Pursuits tab and will reintroduce you to different aspects of the game and gives you tons of bonuses. Things like your riding, stamina, and speed bonuses that could take like up to 45 days or so to get caught back up. You get these from that quest line, as well as some other currency, weapons, armor, and other equipment that you'll get just by knocking out these really simple quests. This game is definitely worth starting even if you're on a brand new, fresh account, but if you have access to an older one, I highly recommend jumping back in on that one. Next up, if you're like me and you're starting a new game or returning to an old game, the most important thing I can do is find the fun in it that keeps me coming back. Something that will keep my attention while I keep playing. ESO is a very unique MMO in that it's probably the most flexible MMO that I've ever played. There are very few choices that you can make, especially at the beginning, that will lock you out of doing anything in the game that you might want to. When you're starting fresh with a character, you may be tempted to pick one class over another because you think that's the best way to accomplish what you want to accomplish in the game, or play the role that you want to play, something like the DPS, the damage dealer, a tank, or a healer. But what I found really cool about ESO is that basically any class can do anything, especially with the new subclassing feature that's been added. Deltia had a cool video about that just a few weeks ago, we'll link it right here. So no matter your class, you can really play any role in this game. Now, especially if it's your first character, pick any class that you think you're going to enjoy, something that's going to keep you sticking with this game. Pick something that looks interesting and fun, something that you think that you can get the hang of the gameplay to keep yourself playing. Me, for example, I love melee builds, so my returning character is a Dragon Knight focused on big weapons and big melee damage. There are also pretty easy ways to change most of these things later on in the game, so just pick something that you think you'll enjoy for now. Another small tip for creating your character has to do with the races and alliances that you're picking at the beginning. Unless you purchase certain items from the store, your race will be limited to this alliance that you're picking, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. While there are some racial bonuses that add a little bit to your character depending on what role you might be playing, none of them are big enough to actually matter later in the game. So just pick something, again, that looks fun to you, that you'll think you'll enjoy and stick with. Now that's for your race. Alliances are a little bit more picky when it comes to some of the gameplay options later. Like in some PvP areas, depending on what alliance you picked, you'll only be able to play with those people in that alliance in some PvP arenas, but in other areas like the battlegrounds, that stuff doesn't even matter either. So then your alliance really will only have an effect on basically your starting story and the background lore for kind of what your character is going through. Now I'm a big story guy when it comes to video games, so I intend to go back and play each one of these alliances for their starting areas and early quests. But again, don't worry about these aspects of your character too much, just focus on learning the game and having fun. That's all that matters. Speaking of story, another really unique aspect of ESO is its non-linear storylines. There are dozens of stories in this game, whether it's the zones or campaigns, major chapters and things like that, from over the past 11 years of gameplay. Like I said, I love stories, so I'm actually focusing on the main campaign right now with the Prophet and the 5 companions. Come check it out on the stream. I'm also going through the zone stories, which are the little kind of self-contained storylines that take place within a zone as you're in there. I'm using these to progress and level and kind of understand the world of Tamriel as it is here in the Elder Scrolls Online. But if some of these storylines or some of these zone stories don't seem super exciting to you, you can jump around and start any of them at any time, as long as you own them. For example, maybe you're playing the most base version of this game on Game Pass for your Xbox or something. You'll have access to the main storyline that I just talked about, but there's also tons of zones in there that have their own self-contained storylines. You can head to the zone guide in that area, click on a button, and it will show you where that zone storyline starts and how to continue through on. This is a super easy way to continue the story on in that area and see things like collectibles and different areas that you'll need to see specifically in that zone. If you find that you're enjoying the game and you want more to play, I would highly recommend starting with an ESO Plus subscription. We're going to talk about that more in just a little bit, even if just for a month or two. That way you have access to basically everything the game has to offer, short of this year's switch to seasons, which again, we'll talk about later. The ESO Plus subscription gives you access to, as far as I can see, 8 different campaigns that have been coming out over the past few years. You'll have full access to those zones and areas and all the little bonuses and additions that came along with them. Each one of those has their own campaign, their own dungeons and zones and storylines. It's pretty awesome. But again, we're going to talk more about the ESO Plus subscription just a little bit later. Next up, a tip, especially for new players, or maybe returning players if you're like me and you didn't really focus much on this when you were playing previously. There are a few things that you should do basically right at the beginning and make a habit out of doing daily that will make your gameplay so much easier in the long run. I've noticed a few of these things that you can make a habit without missing out on the fun of learning the game or focusing too much on min-maxing your character right at the beginning without actually having any fun. Firstly would be to keep track of some of the time-gated elements of your character and things that you need to be working on over time. I think some of the best ones to focus on early are your riding skills for your mount, your speed, your stamina, and how much you can carry. You can train these once per day for a little while. If you work on the returning quest, you'll actually get some bonuses that skip you ahead about 45 days, 15 for each of them, and so that's definitely worth it. But outside of that, it will take you a day to study these and slowly build up your mount's speed and stamina and your carrying capacity as you play the game. You should also begin researching as many traits as you can. As you're playing the game, weapons, equipment, armor, things like that are going to drop, and they're going to have these traits on them. As far as I see, there's about 10 or so traits on different types of weapons, armor, jewelry, things like that, and you actually need to discover each one of them individually for each piece of armor, weapon, equipment, things like that. And so it's going to take some time, but it's definitely worth it to start early and to focus on making this a daily routine for your character. It takes about 6 hours to research one trait. There's about 10 of them per item, and there's about 15 or so items in the game. So we're talking like 1,000 hours or so once you've studied all of these. So start them early and try and focus on them as you go. But don't stress about it too much. Just focus on it in the background and work on having fun in the game. There's also daily login rewards. There's daily quests, daily keys, daily endeavors, all these sorts of things that they want you to do on a daily basis that can slowly build your character up as well. I'd start with focusing on the things that make sense, like the login rewards, the daily quests, and some of those endeavors that seem easier to start. Some of them will be daily, some will be weekly, some will also be monthly. If you know of any things that your character is doing on a regular basis, make sure you shout them out in the comments down below for other people to see. If you'd like a video breaking down some of these habits, make sure you let me know in the comments as well. I'll be adding things like the daily crafting writs and companion rapport to my daily list as I continue to play the game. Lastly, for new and returning players, there are a few things you should focus on upgrading as early as you can to make the game easier in the long run. Firstly, I'd talk about bag space. You can head to a pack merchant in almost any of the major areas in the game, and for just a little bit of gold at the start, you can start to add some more space to your inventory. You can do the same thing with your bank when you speak to a banker, again, in any major city. Your bank is great for storing things that you might be researching later. That way you don't have to worry about carrying them around with you, or maybe storing materials if you don't have an ESO Plus subscription. If you do have one of those subscriptions, you'll get access to a crafting bag, which honestly, that alone is worth it to me right now. You can pick up every single material in the game and basically store it there unlimited. So think about grabbing ESO Plus if this is going to be a game you'll stick with. Once you've started upgrading these things, I'd highly recommend on snagging a Mundus stone pretty early in the game as well. This is super easy to miss if you're a new or returning player. These are basically the same thing as the standing stones from Skyrim. It's basically just a focus bonus that you get for going up to a stone and clicking on it. There's heaps to choose from, so check them all out online and see which one might fit your playstyle best. After you've upgraded your bags, you've gotten some starting armor and equipment, maybe you've decided on a playstyle, what your playstyle is going to look like, at least for the next few hours, there's one more thing that I would highly recommend starting before you dive into the bulk of the game. Maybe that's playing through the storyline, maybe it's questing with friends or diving into dungeons. I'd recommend one more thing before you get started. I would recommend that you run around and you grab as many skill lines as you can, so that way they're going to be progressing as you're playing the game. There are tons of different skill lines in the game. You don't need to be upgrading them and picking skills in each of them as you go, but it will make your life a lot easier if you're leveling them up as you're playing the game, just like normal. There'll be skill lines for every kind of weapon as well as dual wielding, so just have a weapon equipped, go kill something, and you're going to unlock that skill line. It's as easy as that. For armor, just have a couple pieces of that type of armor, light, medium, or heavy, equipped, and you'll unlock those as well. I recommend unlocking them even if you don't think you're going to use them, because it's just handy to see them, and maybe you're going to get to them later. Some of the skill lines that I I think you should unlock very early on that might take a little bit will be things like the guild skill lines. In the main game, there are 3 that you should really focus on: the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, and the Undaunted Guild. Those last guys focus on the dungeon diving in the game. If you have the ESO Plus subscription, or maybe you've bought the whole game, you'll also have access to the Dark Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild, and the Sijic Order Guild as well, and those skill lines will progress as you go also. You can grab those ones as well, but now we're starting to get into the territory of over-preparing a little bit and not having fun as being a beginner. But go ahead and snag some of those skill lines that you think you may use, grab the guilds if you can, and start playing the game like normal so they're going to be progressing along with you. My last tip for new and returning players, as a returning player myself, is maybe a bit messy, but stick with me for a second. It would be to do your best to learn the combat of this game. I know, that's the whole point of the game, but listen to what I mean. ESO has action-based combat. It's not like tap target where you click on something and it happens like WoW or Guild Wars or other MMOs. When you press a button, something happens and you have to press another button to make something else happen. Pressing a button relates directly to an action or a skill or an attack, and those actions, skills, and attacks need to be focused and timed right to be successful. Something I just learned about recently, which I'm sure is familiar to a lot of you if you've been playing this game for a while, is the thing that they call attack weaving. We have a great video on our YouTube channel that's already explaining this. I'll make sure to link it here. But the gist of it is you basically want to be doing almost 2 attacks every single time that you do. Let me explain. This is done through something called animation canceling. It's actually pretty popular in a lot of games, but what it looks like is you're going to start a light attack, just a click of a button, the most simple attack that the game has to offer, and before that animation finishes, you're going to want to fire off a skill that cancels that animation, but still has the attack go through. So you press an attack, but you quickly follow it up with a skill, and if you've done it correctly, you'll get the damage from the attack, and the skill will still continue to proc anyways. That way you're getting the damage from the attack and the skill in a shorter amount of time, increasing your damage output. This takes quite a bit of getting used to. I'm still getting used to it myself, but Deltia had a great video on it that describes it a little bit like a heartbeat, where those 2 button presses might sound like this: tap, 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 where the first tap is your light attack and the second one is your skill, canceling the animation of that attack, but doing it at the right time so the attack still goes through and the skill still gets procced. Some weapons and skill combos are a little bit harder than others. Things like the heavy weapons sometimes might be slower, and so you need to make sure that you're kind of learning your weapon specifically, but once you get the hang of it and make it part of your routine when you're attacking anything, it's going to make the gameplay a lot easier and really increase your damage output. While you're learning this attack style, I highly recommend that you actually read the skills that you're selecting, the weapon information that you're selecting, and understand what they're really doing. Whether they're using your magicka to attack, so using that resource, or your stamina resource to attack, what the skills actually do, how long they take, where they're going to cast, when they're going to cast. There's actually a lot of information, and if you just pick the skill that has the highest number or something that looks the coolest, that's okay, but you're probably missing out on some damage points if you don't really understand how they play. Too often players will pick the skill with the highest damage and not really think about the cost or the action that comes along with it. You guys may not agree, but I think usually being good at a game will also allow me to have the most fun in it. So this is something that you should learn pretty early on. Those are my starting tips as a returning player to ESO. I would super encourage you guys not to rush through this process and just sprint to the end. This game is massive. There are tons of zones and storylines and dungeons and world boss and quests and fun to be had. It's a massive, massive game, and if you sprint through it, you're gonna miss out on what it has to offer. I'd recommend that you find some friends, maybe in the comments down below, or join our Discord. Find some people to play with on any console that you're playing. It's gonna make it so much more fun, I promise. Video games only exist to have fun. I say that all the time. I would also end by saying that ESO Plus subscription that I talked about a little earlier, I don't think it's required by any means. It does have some quality of life improvements like the crafting bag, slightly faster leveling, cheaper things in the store like that, but it is not required. You do not need to spend money on this game to have fun. In fact, there aren't really that many necessary purchases in the ESO store at all. Let me know if I'm missing out on any down in the comments below, but basically everything in this game you can get just by playing the game, and I love that. Make sure to leave me your tips and tricks in the comments down below. Join us for some of our live streams over the next few weeks. We're going to be streaming 6 p.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. the following day, Australian Eastern. That'll be Monday nights and Wednesday nights in the US, Tuesday and Thursday mornings over here. We're going to be playing ESO for the next few weeks. I'd love for you to join me, maybe literally join me in the game and help me out a little bit, but we'll see you guys in the next one.